Krista, who owns this place, allowed me to do this mural because I'd never done a mural before, and I just wanted to do something for the village. My husband taught here for over 30 years. He loved the village, and I just wanted to add something, and I thought if I could make it beautiful, so she let me. And then she made a plaque for me, which is here, and I'll just read what I wrote to her. It is a wonderful dream to live in Bloor West Village, and I'm so thankful to have had the chance to contribute something to this great neighborhood. And I called this mural Village Dream. So I started at this end with the dark colors. I tend to do that. If you look at my artwork later on, it's I often start with dark colors on the right and go into the light. So I started here and just kept going, talked with people as I went along. I loved it. I put a sealant on underneath it. And then a quick story, I did paint a flower down here in honor of my little dog, Cookie. And she was very sick a number of years ago. And that big flower right there, yep, that's the one. That's Cookie's flower. So there is a little bit of she was okay. She came through it. So as it moves on, I thought, okay, I can begin to get some lighter blue in here. And as I did that, I thought, well, here we are in the neighborhood. We've got Grenadier Pond. There's got to be water in it. And then we moved along here and into the pond. And perhaps there's a little island down here, just a tiny little piece of land. And everything's a bit different. The trees are different. The texture's different. This is a willow that's kind of scrawny, but it's nonetheless a willow. Now again, this was in 2017. If I were to do it again, I'd do it differently because I'm a different artist now. And but I like the statement that it's making. It's all part of the landscape. And so lighter blues, and then if you're going to go by color in the sky, it's got to get brighter, so it's yellow and pink. And we're moving into happier times here, I guess. But that's the way I see it, from the dark to the light. But here you see almost a meadow type feeling as we get out of the forest and move into this corner. And I decided that somewhere I better sign it. This is the back wall. It faces the parking lot, the north side of the building. And I did this in 2018, and I was very excited about it because it was wood, and the wood was already, it had texture in it. And you can see here it's actually coming apart. But you know what? That was okay by me. It wasn't about the permanence of it exactly. It was about the journey of doing it, I guess, and being able to do it. And here again, Krista allowed me. This was a free canvas. I didn't charge her anything because that was not the point. The point was to do something that could beautify the village, hopefully, and I had such fun. I mean, imagine being given this size canvas to work on, and the other one is amazing. So I had a blast. Sides I did over in here too, because I wanted this to sort of be an extension of the inside. Mm-hmm. And then we get to this, where we get to the cliffs and the waterfalls. I get a kick out of seeing it. I can walk down Windermere and actually see the back of this building and know that I painted it. So it's great. And actually see the back of this building and know that I painted it. So it's great. This is Sailing to the Moon. And there are days when you paint, when you remember what you were feeling when you were painting it. And so this is one of those. It was a Boxing Day, and I was supposed to go around the corner, I guess, to a friend's house. These friends were like family, and I was supposed to go and have a family dinner with them. And I just couldn't do another I couldn't do another family dinner without my husband, who had, I don't know how many years ago it was I painted this, but it was probably 4 or 5 years that he had been gone. And Christmas time, of course, is very hard, any holiday. So I just went to pieces, and I couldn't go there to the friend's house. And my other friend said, "You need to paint." So I told my family friends that I couldn't make it, and I came home and I painted this in an afternoon. And sailing to the moon, I don't know. At the time, I didn't know why I painted a moon, and I didn't know why I used the colors I did. But it was a dark day. But you know, I don't look at this as a dark painting. I was sailing into the light, even though I was sobbing, and I felt that. So sometimes the artwork really does speak about what I'm going through at the time. Mm-hmm. Not always. I mean, but this was one specifically that does. And did at the time. So I was going to sell it. I mean, I've had this in art shows for a number of years. It's never sold. Now I've decided not to sell it. And I have another one, another painting, which is right around the corner, and it's called Rooms of the Heart. I painted this Rooms of the Heart in the same vein as I did Sailing to the Moon. It was all the ways you can feel after losing someone. And you notice there's a lot of angles, there's light coming through, there's gold, there's purples and greens, there are some birds here in the middle, cranes, dots. I've tried to use different sorts of things, and it's all sort of floating. But I think that's what it feels like. You go from one room to another in a heart that's pretty well broken up, and it just, anyway, when I started out, I don't think I was going to paint this. I wanted to use as much gold in a painting as I possibly could. Well, that was no problem, but then I realized that it really was rooms of the heart. It was the way I was feeling at any different time. Lopsided, balanced, maybe bright and cheery with the dots, maybe with the cranes, maybe I'm flying through a quick moment. But they were all different rooms because they had some structure to it, but not enough, because I was sort of floating in this soup. And that was, so the grief, I've tried to paint my way out of grief. It isn't possible, but it helps. So that's how I work. And I converted a room upstairs into a studio. It's very small, but I love being there. The sun comes through, especially in the morning, and I will eat my lunch up there. I pet my dog up there. She has a little telephone, one of those old telephone stands, and she sits on the pillow next to me, and I pet her. I've got one hand on her and the other hand painting, and it's my favorite spot. So we were sitting on my friend's porch, and I had contact lenses of 3 different colors. So sometimes my eyes were blue, sometimes they were green. They're blue here, but my eyes are brown actually. But so, yeah, I don't wear contacts anymore, but I used to be able to change my eye color. Mike's eyes were always green, hazel. And that's my doggy barking because I'm not paying attention. But he always wore that fisherman's cap. And there we are, the week before we got married. Oh, and I went gray at 30, and here I'm 40. So I was putting a rinse on my hair, a brown rinse. Here I will eat lunch sometimes, at least 2 or 3 hours a day, let's say. So when you add it up, sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. And I've got paint all over. I thought it might be a good idea to put them in cartons and separate them, but they always end up getting mixed up anyway. So the problem is that when I'm feverishly painting, the last thing I want to do is to look for a color that I need. You'd think that I would have them all laid out ahead of time. Well, that never happens. I do end up, sometimes I blindly go into a pot and pull something out and use that color because I love color. And the Japanese paper is overtaking the walls. I have a bag here filled with bags of Japanese paper, and it goes on forever. And then I have these dowels filled with it. I've done some using this, which I love. Then I have a pile here of different sorts of papers that were made by another artist. And these are gorgeous. These are like pours, P-O-U-R-S, that artists do. I do smaller works, I do larger works. You know what, here's another moon painting. And this is, this one. This is called Moving the Moon. And I really liked it because I saw the birds here. What I did was, this is a piece of Japanese paper cut to look like a partial moon. And then the paper itself is loaded with these metallic birds. So then I painted the birds around it to look as if they were carrying the moon off. They're either, I don't know, I kind of see them going, I see it going towards the dark. There is a stair, I just put the staircase in. I like that painting, and this is a painting I just went back into because I did not like what the waves were doing before. But I learned how to do waves in the last few years, and I thought, okay, now's the time. I'll go back, put a couple in that look a little more like waves. And then when I did that, I also put in stairs that are going up. And I ended up liking, I didn't like the painting before, but I do like it now. So, But you can see how I use the Japanese paper there. That is not representative of the best ways I've used Japanese paper. Some of these are more like what I have done with paper, where it's more collage. And I use the paper well, there's tissue paper under there as a background, and then I've put Japanese paper over the top of that. Where the blue flowers are, this is part of the tissue paper that I painted over. And then these tall tree-like things, those are actual Japanese paper cut in strips. And the same thing over here, I've done some strips. But what the paper does is allow me to extend anything that looks like a tree or any kind of pattern. If I had wanted to put gold squares coming off this and going up, then I could. The paper is very suggestive of what I want to do. That's the main thing. And then my helper here, who sits on the telephone stand while I paint, is very helpful. And here's another one I think that probably used, oh yes, there's a lot of paper in that. And there's a lot of texture. I did use, I gotta show you what I used here on this. When you get cartons with, you get stuff with candy in them, and something that looks like that, that's what I used to make these. I dipped it in the paint and then I put it on there. And I thought it made kind of a neat shape. But here, there's Japanese papers underneath this. I love this texture of this paper here, which goes around. And I have a sheet of that, something like it, right here, and that's how that's used. Papers like this. And look at that fantastic shape. And if you put that under what you're painting the paint comes right through it. It's beautiful. Yeah, so that's very good for texture. But I think the main thing is, and here was the major influence. People often ask artists, well, who is your major influence in life? And mine was Thomas Cole. And Thomas Cole was also a poet, so he was a man after my own heart. I'm a poet, and poetry came first, then painting. But this is these four paintings are paintings of life. The first one is childhood, with the angel in the boat just coming, very symbolic, of course, just emerging from the cave and coming down the river. Childhood, youth, and there you see the angel. There's an angel and a baby actually in that first one. Then you see the angel farther away, and you see the young man. So this is youth, and he's looking towards his dreams in the sky, still traveling down the river. And then he reaches manhood, which is a very, very difficult time in people's lives. And he's in a river, a mad flowing river. The angel is still there, but much farther away, looking down on him. And you even see sort of devilish faces in the top of the cave there. And then he flows down the river, and he comes. Unfortunately, I've got a photograph there in front of that, but this is old age. The angel has come back down to retrieve him. The bow of the boat is broken off. He sits on the lake, and then the sky opens up to receive him, and it's peaceful. It's a little dark, but it does open up into the light. So, I mean, Thomas Cole was a religious man, obviously. These are very religious paintings, but they shaped my life as an artist. I have done Thomas Cole paintings, and I love to copy his work, and I do that to learn. I've got to say that I used to say to my students in school, if you stop learning, you might as well just pack it in. You might as well just die. Don't ever stop learning. I never stop learning about myself, about my friends, about my artwork. I spend a lot of time alone discovering things about color and artwork. You just never stop learning. And go back to the masters if you know, they taught us a lot. We're standing on them. We're standing on their works. And so I do. I go back, paint Thomas Cole, and I really love his work. And there are two sets this is called The Voyage of Life. There are two sets. One is in Washington, D.C. The other lives in Utica, New York at the Munson William Proctor Institute. And anytime I can, I go there and I find myself in awe again, because each painting is about the size of this south wall.
Wow.
They're huge. And they travel the country. And so, you know, a good share of the time they're not in Utica, but that is where they live. Just little old Utica, New York. He started the Hudson River School of Artists, and so he was from the area.
And so where are you from originally?
I'm from Oneida, New York, near Syracuse, in between Syracuse and Utica. Yeah.
And what brought you to...
I married a wonderful man. I met him in Florida at a mutual friend's house, and we clicked. But he had gone there for Christmas. I went there for a Christmas celebration. And then I'd never been on a plane before, and it was my first trip away. And then it was one of these wham! I just fell head over heels in love. And I guess he did too. We didn't know what we were going to do. I didn't want to move to Canada. He did not want to move to the U.S., so you can see how that worked out. So it was a great compromise, actually. I'm always okay with that. And I had an apartment. He had a house. I had a car. He had a motorcycle. So between the two of us, we worked it out. And if I hadn't compromised, I wouldn't have known that kind of love if I hadn't compromised. So I'm glad I did.
Mm-hmm.
He was great. He was a great man. So, but he used to say, "Honey, your trees, they just don't look like trees." So it was a great. He used to make me laugh, and I used to say about my poetry, "Here, dear, this is very accessible. Oh, he says, it means I'm going to understand it then. So I would read it to him. He was my sounding board, and he'd ask a common question like, well, what does that mean? And I thought that was very important. So, yeah, he was very good as a sounding board. But yeah, I have pictures of him. I think the people you live with, you know, help form your art. Certainly, they help form anything in your life. So there are pictures of him all over. And my favorite picture, though, I mean, this is kind of nuts, but my favorite picture is this. Not that you can see him, but it's the way we are communicating. There's something between a husband and a wife. You can see the look. There's a slight smile on my face, and it was the tilt of his head where it's a perfect honesty. If I don't know how else to describe it, but you just know by the orientation of the body, maybe the tilt of the head, that there's an understanding there beyond words. I guess that's what I'm saying. You know, the words are, anyway. That's my favorite. I've got it down in the kitchen too, so I have two. I have got a couple of those. I've had several people that had that. I guess I don't know who took that photograph, but I do have a series of nebula paintings, and so I've been working on those, where I can make up the nebula. I love that. Imagine that. You know how nebula are, they're so gaseous and beautiful anyway, but imagine making them up.
Wow,
So
yeah.
I had a great time making that up. Gives you a lot of freedom to do that. And then I've also made a lot. I've got hundreds of paintings, and I've done a lot on paper. Now that's Japanese paper on paper, and this was done in Italy a few years ago on a trip that I took there. So this just needs to be framed, and it's sold this way. So gives you an idea of some of the other stuff. Now I arranged them by size rather than title. I didn't know if that was the way to do it or not, but I think so, because then at least I can stand them up a bit. The most common size is 16 by 20. And the other one I love is 18 by 24. That makes a size that's, you know, it's a good size painting, and yet it's not overly so. And then the large ones, and I've done several of these are 30 by 40, and they are wonderful to do. I mean, I love this. But again, you know, if you're talking about storing paintings, it's tough. You know, you've got to have a big place like I do to store them. So I guess that's the only reason I hold back on 30 by 40, or that's, you know, I'd be painting more of those. But I do, yeah, I do enjoy them. 30 by 30 is a good size, and look at the size of this. Look at how deep that canvas is. This is brilliant, huh?
Wow.
Yeah, I love that. You don't see very many of these canvases now, I don't think.
Beautiful.
But yeah, so I have enough to do by just stringing them, putting wires on them, and painting this, making sure the sides are painted, and making sure that they have been glossed over, especially if I've used, especially if I have used paper, you know. And there aren't as many, I will tell you, there aren't as many horizontal ones as there are vertical. So I don't know what that says about me, but and maybe it says something about the spaces in our houses. I don't know. But, or maybe in this neighborhood. I do tend to do more vertical. I did a series of huge flowers, and I got into sunflowers. This is a really funky sort of a, you know, rock and roll flower generation in Halliburton. It was in the summer, and I stayed with a friend who lived just north of there. And for a week, we painted and heard lecture and stuff. And that's when I came back and I painted my first really bright sunflower painting, which I gave away to a friend now. But this came during that phase, and I did several. And I was it was a breaking out point for me. After that, there were no limits. After that course, somehow I just broke free. I guess it gave me the confidence to break free. There's something to be said for that. When you at the end of your brush, when you're painting, there's a certain confidence in an artist that has painted for a number of years. I don't know how the viewer picks that up, but they must, because a young artist could make the same mark, and for some reason it doesn't fly. But if you have some confidence, and you're painting with this abandon, I love that word. If you're painting like that, and then there's a confidence there that other people pick up, and that's what speaks to them, and that's why people have different views on art and why they buy a painting. It's got to speak to them. It's got to hit them in the heart. It's got to be either a color, a movement, a texture, but it's the confidence at the end of the brush or the palette knife or the scraper, whatever you're using. And I know that when I was putting these petals in after that course, it was just a confidence. Okay, I'm going to put this here. I'm going to put a little circle here, and I'm going to zap. I have a couple of gold pieces up here, and I'm going to use this paper here. I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to think too much, but I'm going to feel it. And I guess that's where the confidence comes, from feeling it. This was called Fanfare. I have always loved this painting. I think it's fun. It's got a lot of Japanese paper in it. It's never sold, and I don't care. That's another thing. I decided that I was never going to be limited by the amount of room in my house. I was going to paint, so what? They don't sell, they stack up. I give them away sometimes. I donate them to charities. Obviously, I need to donate a few more because I'm really collecting them. But, you know, it's okay. I've got to be expressive. I've got to do my thing. I really like this one, too. I mean, some of them I like, some of them I really detest. But I like this. What was that? What was that? Was Heeding the Call. And this was my attempt to use as many kinds of cranes in the Japanese paper that I had in my collection. So you can see that it sort of goes around like this. My friend pointed out that she sees a high heel shoe in it. Mm-hmm. And I thought, you know what? That's not a bad image. So you can see what you like. And then this is my sensuous flower phase. And my Gilding the Lily, which I love Georgia O'Keeffe, but it wasn't that I was trying to emulate her in this. What I did was cut out pieces of curved paper, and I just kind of went nuts on that. And everything that I could expand on in each piece of paper I did. And with this shape, I love this lily shape. This particular calla lily I have in many, many paintings, and that's a shape that has sort of shaped my flower work forever. These I did quite early on, this one. Again, that's a 20 by 24. That's a good size. And again, using the Japanese paper, which I just can't get enough of. Yeah, and there you can see that luscious color that I just love color. Yeah, and I find that I did, when I said before about the sunflowers, I had a big painting, and I took a section of that painting and made another painting from it. And now it wasn't exactly the same, but what I did was base another painting on a small section of a large painting. And I came out with things like this. So I had a whole series. It's on my website. I have a series of sunflower paintings based on the larger painting. And it was fun to do that. They didn't have to be exactly the same, so I let the painting take over, and I let it become what it was, what it was bound to become. So, yeah. And then I've also done some minimalist, because I do love the Japanese feeling. And again, very minimalist that. And then this one as well, I don't use a lot of red. And so for me to use red is quite amazing and exciting. So that one, again, very little paper. But the paper it really sent me to this sort of thing. And so... I never painted as a kid. I loved art, as you know, through Thomas Cole. I was very young. I was in junior high school probably when I encountered the paintings of Thomas Cole. But the main influence before that, I guess, was Van Gogh's The Potato Eaters. I felt something as a kid in that. It really got me. It was the lines in their faces, I think. But I never painted. I never picked up a paintbrush till I was 40 years old, maybe 41 or 2. And of course now I'm only 45. And don't I wish? Anyway, but I didn't. I never painted. I always wanted to. I didn't have enough time. It was the academics. I was from New York State, where you take a Regents exam. I had to take all those classes. But I did take one art class, and that's where I saw the Potato Eaters. So I guess I remembered that I always wanted to paint. And so when I married Mike, and I was very happy, he encouraged me to do that. And a lady that went to my church took me to my first painting class. I picked up the painting brush. The very first painting I painted, which I have here someplace, and I should find it, was from Thomas Cole. This is a painting that I have to think twice about selling. It may look like a lot of the rest of them, but when my husband was sick, he was actually sick a total of 6 years, on and off with cancer. And he was at St. Joseph's on numerous occasions for blood transfusions. He had a major operation. He also had a gallbladder removed during that time. Lots of time spent at St. Joseph's. Under here are the parking tickets from the garage at St. Joseph's. But there is no forgetting. They're still here. This one's coming through. And I put them all here. Some of them are shining through. But it not only does it create texture, but it's a reminder that these pieces of paper are underneath something more beautiful, and or something bright, or something moving on. I don't know why I couldn't get rid of those parking tickets from the garage. There's got to be hundreds of dollars represented here over 6 years, but I don't know. Something in me said I needed to make them into something positive, so that's what I did.